Hello and welcome to our channel. In this video, we shall talk about one common problem that most young researchers struggle with, and that's called plagiarism. Now, what exactly is plagiarism? Plagiarism is something that is increasingly being realized as research misconduct. Now, when we try to reproduce someone's thoughts or ideas or even content that they've already published somewhere without giving due accreditation, like we're not acknowledging that person and trying to present this as our own stuff, knowingly or unknowingly, that's called plagiarism, and it's unethical research practice. Mostly, what really happens is we write papers and we do a thorough review of literature as we write a paper and try to put that particular source as a citation to whatever we are reproducing here. May it be a text or a figure or a table, whatever. Now, if we fail to accredit that person, then it's bad practice. But at the same time, let us analyze in which situations this kind of failure to accredit happens. From my experience of working with young students, young researchers, and reflecting on my journey as I evolved in my initial days of research, I have realized 4 or 5 points happening here, 4 or 5 reasons of ending up with a plagiarism here. First, ignorance. Like you don't really know what is plagiarism. Now, we copy pasted something and reproduced it verbatim, or maybe did a bit of paraphrasing here and there, but most of the sentence structures are similar. Or we tried to reproduce something, but forgot to mention, put the quotation marks. Like suppose it's a definition, you want to reproduce it as such, but you forgot to put the inverted commas there and cite the resource. Or when someone reproduces his or her own previous work in the current work without citing, just forward with publishing it, then those are different formats of plagiarism. So if you are actually reproducing everything in toto, that's global plagiarism. Suppose you are plagiarizing yourself, that's self-plagiarism. Or if you're not paraphrasing adequately or just copy-pasting stuff, then that again is a form of plagiarism. So it could be unintentionally you're doing it. So that's one form of ignorance. The other is deliberate plagiarism. When you are trying to, you know that you are doing a misconduct here, but you're just going ahead with it. And that happens with students who are pressed against very stiff timelines. Usually due to lack of time, you do not take good care of rephrasing or editing or being very careful about it, and you just let it go. Or maybe out of goodwill, like your friend is there, your friend has written a piece and then has submitted to his or her supervisor, and you borrow that and you reproduce it, like do some edits and reproduce it as yours and present to your supervisor. Of course, the supervisors would not get to know that the same stuff has been presented both ends. Now, those are certain areas where you need to improve upon. Now, this is about your knowledge, like your understanding of plagiarism or your intention. But what I could also see is a skill gap. Like whenever you are trying to cite something, then you must know how to cite it. So understanding or knowledge of your skills with citation softwares or citation reference management softwares and formats as well. Many times students do not have an orientation of these softwares like EndNotes or Tero, Mendeley. They do not know about these softwares. We have some videos in our playlist. You can go and see them as well. So they do not manage to use citation softwares and they end up not citing the resources. That's again one catch-22 situation to get into, where you know that this is a sentence that I must accredit, but I do not know how to do that. The other element is your grip over the language in which you are trying to write. Suppose you're writing in English and you do not have a good vocabulary of English, good understanding of how to make those sentence structures, and you do not manage to paraphrase well. There are softwares like Grammarly is one software that helps you in formatting your sentences properly, or you can take help of people who have a good grip over the language in which you're writing, so they can copy edit your stuff and you can get away with making unique content in your write-up. The other element is ability to think critically. So when I look at different papers or theses, I see that in papers, we get much of plagiarism in the introduction and discussion part. In thesis, it's a review of literature where you get to see a lot of plagiarism stuff. So if you're not able to synthesize things, like you have not been into the thick of the research that you're doing, then also being a bit superficial, you may end up plagiarizing. So what exactly would one do to avoid plagiarism? Now, we know that it's plagiarism and we need to avoid it. So how to go about it? There are a couple of ways of doing it. As I mentioned, putting things under inverted commas if you're actually reproducing the stuff verbatim, putting them in inverted commas, and again citing. Don't forget to cite. The other one is paraphrasing. Paraphrasing means you change the entire sentence structure and avoid using 2-3 words consecutively the way it has been used in the original source. So avoid clubbing the same sentence structures or the same 3-4 words here verbatim. You paraphrase it absolutely. The best way of doing is like trying to shorten the sentences. So if you got a sentence from a source, you have pasted it here. Now try to shorten it. If you shorten it, then automatically you'll end up paraphrasing. But again, don't forget to cite. The third way of doing it is summarizing. Like, for example, there are 3-4 resources we have identified. Now club all of that information here, crunch it, make it crisp, and then cite those 3 resources or 4 resources, or maybe 1 or 2 resources. Don't just limit yourself to just one resource. So you summarize and crunch. That's one way of going about plagiarism. But the bottom line is that if you are not able to iterate with your revisions, then you run the higher risk of getting into this plagiarism thing. If you write a draft, edit, again revisit, re-edit, re-edit, if you do it 3-4 times, automatically the plagiarism concern is taken care of. If you are not able to do it, then ensure or request your supervisor to help you out. Now, that again brings us to the responsibilities of the supervisor. Now, if you're a teacher and you have a lot of students, you must realize that your students would not know about plagiarism. So it's your responsibility to inform them that this is plagiarism, this is what you should avoid doing, and this is how you do it. Now, beyond that, you can also ensure that you have a constant revision on with the drafts that your students are preparing. So look at the drafts. If there are iterations, you get involved. Automatically, with your intervention, the plagiarism will be gone. Now, the another way is you ask for the references. Many times what happens is you have too many students to handle, too many dissertations to go about, too many papers underway. In that case, if your student is working on that dissertation or paper, you ask your student to reproduce the references. So please bring me the references and show me how you have taken care of these references in this paper. That is a quick fix. Maybe you have to invest half an hour, 1 hour, and then you run through all the 15-30 references that your student has used in the paper, and you will be able to spot with your experience that here there is a potential risk of plagiarism. Now, we have written a draft and we have taken our best efforts to avoid plagiarism, but how do we ensure that we are within the safety limits? A couple of softwares that we could use for doing a plagiarism check. Orkin is one that is freeware, like it's available for free. But in the paid software category, we have Authenticate, we have Turnitin. Turnitin is really good. I think Turnitin website mentions about Authenticate. So maybe there's some takeover merger. I do not know what has happened here, but then Turnitin is a very authentic resource and also Grammarly, the paid version, the Grammarly premium version, that also allows you to do some kind of plagiarism check. So Turnitin generates reports which provides a similarity index and then also shows whether it is an internet source from where the content has been plagiarized, or it is some user archives from where it has been plagiarized. What Turnitin does is it highlights the sentences and also shows which references are plagiarized here. So you can go and use your own logical thinking, and suppose you want to edit that particular sentence, you can edit, and then the plagiarism goes off. If your uniqueness is more than 80%, 90% is what I say. So if your uniqueness is 90%, that means the similarity index dips below 10%. Then it's a great draft to go ahead with. Now, there are certain risks with using other less reputed software. So if you upload your content to the web, does it really stay archived somewhere? If it stays archived, then what really happens? Like suppose next time when you run the same software or another software, does it actually match? Does it show that it is already in the database and it is all plagiarized? So there are risks. So don't just move around with different softwares. Try to stick to these softwares or take the help of your librarian. Your librarian may be able to help you out on this. Now, this is the basic operating rules of handling plagiarism. But of course, if you paraphrase, most of these softwares would not be able to pick up your paraphrase sentences as plagiarism stuff. So what they do is these software generate reports of similarity index. They do not say uniqueness or originality or plagiarism index. They just say similarity index. So just be careful with that. But it's not tough game. Once you get your hands dirty with a bit of like editing and handling the references, you'll be good to go about it. All the best.